All right, as we're expecting now any moment soon that we'll get that presser on the Boks.
And of course, this is around the rights. A lot of people looking to hear exactly what happens now. And Simon is here to tell us about the significance of this particular moment. Simon, of course, the issue of rights is always one that is thorny. And let's talk about the significance of this particular press conference.
Well, outside of a World Cup, when the public broadcaster does have the rights for games that are of national importance, when there is a game that everybody's talking about, everybody's coming to a standstill about, it just seems like the majority of South Africans don't have access to the party. And that's not something that the sports minister made it very clear. That was one of the first things he tweeted about, is that he wants to make sure that if it's of utmost importance. There we go. They're sitting down right now, so we're going to go right there now and have a listen.
I will introduce the top table. There will be an opportunity for media questions at the conclusion of the formal session, but let me first of all introduce our top table. Starting on your left is Nomsa Chibedi, who is the Group CEO for the SABC. The Honourable Gayton McKenzie, of course, the Sports Minister next to Nomsa. Mark Alexander, the President of South African Rugby. And then the main man tonight, Rendani Ramoba from Supersport, CEO. I'll hand over to Mr. Alexander to make a few opening remarks.
Good evening. The Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Honourable Gayton McKenzie, the CEO of SABC, Ms. Nomsa Chibedi, the CEO of Supersport, Rendani Ramoba, and members of the media. I think today it's an important announcement, special announcement, just on the eve of a historic celebration tomorrow. And without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Ramoba to make the announcement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I'd just like to echo greetings to the Minister, Honourable Minister, to Nomsa, Group CEO of SABC, and to the media. Thank you for joining us today. The Minister has, over the last few weeks, he's given us as Supersport and MultiChoice some feedback around the fact that we need to be more deliberate about how we tell our story and how we own the space in terms of our investment in sport over the years. So I just want to give some context in terms of us as a business and the journey that we've gone on. So as an opening, I think South Africa has a long and glittering history when it comes to sport. And I think as Supersport, we've got the privilege of being able to craft and curate some of these stories in terms of the everyday life sports story. And we pride ourselves as being one of the biggest broadcasters globally in terms of how we basically bring the sporting content to Africa and to South Africa as well. Just in terms of our sporting content, I mean, we broadcast on excess of 15,000 live sports events yearly. Again, I think globally that in itself is a massive statement just in terms of us as Supersport, in terms of what we do. And again, we pride ourselves in terms of the commitment that we've made to South Africa and Africa alike. And our commitment is to make sure that we will continue to make sure that we drive that story. And I think one of the mantras that we have at MultiChoice and Supersport is sport is what we do, it's who we are, and it's what we live. And I think as we zone into now the context of why we're here, I think 2024 marks 30 years of democracy of South Africa. And we're here to celebrate that milestone and the contribution that rugby generates or contributes in terms of unifying us as a nation. The Springboks have played a critical role in uniting the country and lifting morale in and around the country. I think we've seen in the last World Cup, we've just seen how we come together as a country. And I think just scenes in terms of what we've seen on broadcast, that in itself is quite amazing, right? And I think rugby also makes us to believe in the impossible. I mean, if you think about US Van der West's days and when he tackled John Alomo, and we are having some of those discussions now, just in terms of how South Africa versus New Zealand is one of the greatest rivalries in rugby. And I think that in itself just speaks testament into how special this match is. 2024 also marks 30 years since the Springboks have played the All Blacks for the first time after South Africa's first democracy. And again, that then brings us into why this is a special milestone where we would like to announce that Supersport and SABC have partnered to then bring and announce a unique once-off partnership to mark the 30 years of democracy in South Africa. SuperSport and SABC have made it possible for this match only for both ourselves and the SABC to broadcast the Casalaga Rugby Championship match between the Springboks and the All Blacks at the Emirates Airline Park. The partnership was made possible through collaboration between SA Rugby, and we'd need to actually call out and single out Mark Alexander, the president, Rian Oberosa, Saru CEO, as well as the minister, in terms of the energy that you brought. It's hard to believe you're only 2 months in, but you're keeping us all on our toes. But just the intensity that you've brought in terms of making sure that we put sports first, and we always make sure that we use sport to unify as a nation. So it's an amazing milestone, and we'd just like to thank the media for being here. We'd like to thank all the partners, but again, it's not possible without you in terms of how we tell our story. We are making a recommitment to the fan, recommitment to sport, and we cannot do that without our partners and the fans that love the sport as well. Thank you.
Now hand over to Nomsa Chabedi from the SABC.
Thank you, Andy. Minister McKenzie, good evening. And good evening to the SARU President, Mr. Mark Alexander, to the CEO of SuperSport, Mr. Rendani Ramoba, to various, guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. As SABC, we don't take for granted the public mandate that we've been granted, and really our role in society, and what it means to grant universal access to South Africans who tend to stay on the margins of society. We understand our role, and we understand that it's important for us to inspire and build our national pride and patriotism amongst our citizens. And this agreement here tonight is really an epitome of us as a public broadcaster working with our partners that I'm seated with here today, and ensuring that SABC as a public broadcaster is able to deliver on its mandate. And this is just one of the many programs that SABC is embarking on to ensure that we implement and advance the love of country, the love of patriotism. This is a momentous occasion for us because we are delighted to bring to our viewers one of the most special rugby matches that the Springboks are going to partake in. We know the rivalry between us and New Zealand, and we are very happy that millions of South Africans are going to get to enjoy it tomorrow when the match kicks off at 5 o'clock. The Springboks by themselves are really a symbol of unity and strength, and also resilience from a South African perspective. If you think about the fact that they've won 2 World Cups back to back, and I think the second time many of us couldn't believe it, and I was lucky enough to have been in that stadium to see it happen. And I think what's exciting is that to broadcast the match really takes away the feeling that rugby is for the privileged few. Rugby belongs to South Africans. Rugby is a national sport. And South Africans, all of us, we need to be granted the opportunity and the chance to support the boys in green and gold and to really, have our voices heard and give that unwavering commitment and support to them. So as SABC, we are very happy and we are very humbled, actually, that we've been brought to this table to share in this momentous occasion. And we are excited that our audiences are going to be part of this historic occasion. And this clash will really be broadcast live on SABC2, on our sports channel, on our streaming platforms. And I really want to take this opportunity to just give my heartfelt gratitude to the gentleman I'm sitting with. I'm the rose amongst the thorns, as you can see. Really, the unwavering support that I've felt from them is very critical. As we celebrate the 30 years of democracy of South Africa, we're still a very young democracy, and we must never take our democracy for granted as South Africans. And as SABC, we believe that we really are the broadcaster that drives support for democracy, because democracy is about an informed, an educated, and an entertained society. And that's what SABC does. And tomorrow we know that this proudest of moments, and I'm certain, by the way, that the Springboks will win the match tomorrow. We look forward to emerging victorious, not just on the pitch, but victorious as a nation as we scream our lungs out and support our boys. And really, it has been made possible by the collaboration between the broadcasters, by SARU, led by Mark Alexander and Rian standing over there, and obviously our minister, who has not rested on his laurels and has taken every opportunity to ensure that unity is not just a word, but unity is being brought alive in South Africa today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nomsa. That's the perfect intro for the Minister.
As the minister responsible for sport in the country, I'm thrilled that SuperSport and the South African Broadcasting Corporation have reached an agreement through which the public broadcaster will be broadcasting tomorrow's game, the test match between the Springboks and the All Blacks. And marking 30 years of democracy of our nation, this once-off landmark event will be a celebration of rugby's greatest rivalry. I would also like to publicly acknowledge the generosity of SuperSport in their willingness to come together with the public broadcaster to ensure that this once-in-a-lifetime historic game is available on SABC. This once-off gesture by SuperSport to South Africans is in line with their ongoing commitment. And I can testify to that, you know, we have great companies. And when the story of great companies shall be written, both these companies, the SABC and SuperSport, that work will be incomplete if their names are not being mentioned. As a country, we've made remarkable strides. You know, we were once a divided country, but we are now a unified society. You know, and rugby can justly lay a claim, President, to being a major catalyst in bringing South Africans together. You know, we are immensely pleased that all South Africans will be able to have the opportunity to witness this historic occasion. Our late President Nelson Mandela believed that sport possesses the unique power to unite people like nothing else, and it still remains a guiding truth as we continue to see our nation getting closer and closer and closer. We are indeed stronger as a nation. But I must say this event is also a product of our very powerful government of national unity. You know, South Africans had a miracle in 1994. And few might disagree with me. But I want to say to you that the government of national unity is our second miracle. And for SuperSport, thank you for not being arrogant. Thank you for approaching these negotiations in a manner of nation building, in a manner of understanding. Nomsa, you are a star. I look at you and I've been in meetings with you and you're feisty, you fight for the people, but you are truly a product of how far black women has come in this country. And for that, I've got much respect. To Saru, when I became the minister, everybody told me lots of stories about Saru. Until I met Saru. Until I've seen what Saru is doing. And I want to say to Rian, the CEO, working alongside you has been one of the greatest pleasures. And to the man that never wants to take the credit, the man next to me, President Mark, what you have done, I remember where rugby was around 2014. What you have done, how you have made rugby one of the biggest brands. The Springbok is one of the biggest brands. And thank you for bringing back Rassie. Rassie is a national treasure. Erik is lief vir hy man. Rassie Erasmus is a hero. Rassie Erasmus gets it. And I want to say to other sports people, you know, we must learn from each other. And if you want to learn, other coaches, if you want to learn where we should be, we mustn't be jealous. Rassie Erasmus is our guy. And in conclusion, to my president, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, thank you for the wisdom, the vision to appoint a sports minister like Gayton McKenzie. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. The floor is open to questions. If you could indicate through the lights.
You put lights up?
Any question? So you guys are covered.
One from ETV.
Mr. President, talk around this, obviously, broadcasting matches on Supersport naturally drives a lot of finance towards the union, but at the same time, you understand the work that the Springboks have done for South Africa. So, how important was it for you guys to be able to see this through and make sure that South Africa on the whole gets to see the Springboks in action against arguably the biggest competitor?
I think it's very important because we want to grow our sport. We want to have as many people as possible watching the Springboks play. And there's also a way of saying thank you to all the South Africans, the millions of people who supported us while we were overseas competing for the World Cup, for their TikToks, their YouTubes. Without them, we would not have won this World Cup. And I think this is a great thank you to them.
Minister, for you, you came in and then you will say, here's another minister just paying lip service to. I think it would be fair to say that this surely will rubber stamp the things that you've said and want to do and achieve within South Africa, and getting South Africa to see the Springboks live and not delayed live or highlights at a later stage on other channels must for you mean that you're on the right track.
No, thank you very much. But I just want to say, when the president was talking about, he's saying thank you to the TikTokers, and he was actually thanking me also. I'm also a TikToker. So, no, I think, we as government, sometimes we might lead the country, but we can also learn. The attitude that prevails here between the SABC and Supersport, and also the fact that this thing is being made possible, but there's going to be financial losses. Let's be honest about it. Supersport is going to suffer some financial losses. But they said, this is not important for us at the moment. It's important that the nation sees the game. Which brings me to my main point. We as government, and I want to say it right here, we should not put our responsibilities. We should also play our part. I'm going to go back and make sure that NOMSA speak to the minister, and myself and the minister, Soli, will then go and ask the Minister of Finance for more funding. We can't expect Supersport to show every game. What will our role be as government? It's very easy to go and say, Supersport, show the games. But what people don't see, and I don't even think they would want me to say it, but you saw people win gold medals. Bayanda won a gold medal. There's 2 gold medals being won and 1 bronze. And those boys, Athletics South Africa, didn't have money to send them to Peru. They called the minister, because they know I'm an action man. I phoned many people, but Supersport was the first one to come back and say, we will also contribute. The Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, we paid for the flights 10 or 20 minutes before they flew out. There would have been no gold medal, so I'm trying to, but Supersport will never tell you, so I'm telling you now. that in South Africa, I'm very happy. I'm very happy for this country because we live in the greatest country in the world. And we are the greatest people. And we have the greatest rugby team in the world. And if you doubt it, watch on SABC tomorrow, watch on Supersport tomorrow, and you will see that we are the greatest nation with the greatest rugby team. And President, once again, you make us proud. Thank you.
Gentlemen, Mr. McKenzie, Brendan from Octafield. We're all excited about South Africans can watch the game tomorrow. And we're hoping that hundreds of thousands of young boys and girls will see something they've never seen before and be inspired. What do you hope to see as a pathway for those youngsters going forward to hopefully become Springboks and Springbok women one day?
No, thank you. Very good question. There was a Springbok player called Brayton Paulser. Brayton Paulser went to a school to go and speak about his journey of rugby. At that very school was a delinquent boy, was a boy that was involved in gangsterism. That boy was so inspired by what Brayton Paulser said that he decided that moment, I'm going to become a Springbok rugby player. He not only became a Springbok rugby player, he became the best rugby player in the world at the time. And his name is Ashwin Willemse. So I hope that tomorrow somebody can look at Sia and any player tomorrow and say what Ashwin said many years ago and say, I'm going to become a Springbok one day, because dreams do come true. And that's what I hope to see. That tomorrow, and it's not even all, we are going further. NOMSA will also think tomorrow you will see that there's going to be a show in halftime. There's going to be a show before the rugby to mark our 30 years of democracy, the celebration. So the people are in for a treat. There's a before and after. I nearly said after tears, but that's for the All Blacks. There'll be after tears for the All Blacks. So yeah, that's what I hope to see. Young people looking at the Sia Colises of this world, looking at our players tomorrow and say, I can be that one day. Because a kid in sport is a kid out of court. Thank you.
We've seen it now in rugby. Will these type of once-off events follow through to other tours also that are accessible to masses?
They've done the part. NOMSA has done a part. She had to do 100% to make this match happen. She did 100%. Rendani and the President Alexander, to do 100%. They did 100%. I must now come back to government. And we must also do our part. And I want to be honest about it. We can't just stop here. We must go to soccer games. We must go there. But Supersport will tell you how much they do for this country, for instance. And they can't do it if we will take the rights and just show the rights for free. NOMSA is trying to, she's building something wonderful at the SABC. We can see changes happening. But those changes cost money. Government should also play their part. And I don't want people next week when there's another game now say, why is NOMSA not showing? Why is Supersport not showing? They must say, why is our government taking so long? Because one thing I can tell you about me, I am an action man. I'm going to go back in cabinet. The GNU is the best thing that could have happened to this country. It's only one thing I don't like about the GNU. Only one. That the people will love the GNU so much that they bring it back after 5 years. But the GNU must play their part. And our president, he leads us well. And he's the glue that keeps us together. You must understand, in the GNU you have the DA, you have the ANC, you have 10 other parties, then you have the PA, and we are not easy people to work with. That was Baizani. But the president is managing to keep us together. And I think that is the secret of the GNU. I even told the president in private, President, if you want to leave one day, you must tell me, because I knew it will fall apart. You must tell me before so I can also leave, and I mustn't be there when it fails. He said he's going nowhere. He'll be here for 5 years. So you're going to see me for 5 years? Thank you very much.
Can you, sir? Was the sub-licensing issue that scuppered the broadcasting of Ireland? Was that particular matter, was it a hindrance in these discussions? And will this particular game also be available on the particular platform that was in dispute with regards to the sub-licensing matter?
Yeah, you know, the word sub-license means you must be negotiating. And that's the answer. You should ask them. Have there been any negotiations? No. So I think that answers your question. You can't want to sub-license by not talking. By not throwing your name in the hat, in the ring, to be part of a broadcast deal. So they haven't done that. But, you know, time will tell. Maybe they'll come up and bid for the next time around.
Rudani, this is a very important announcement. More so because we've always seen, as the general public, Supersport on one side SABC on the other side. It's a financial sacrifice SuperSport's making. How important is it that we see the two broadcasting giants in the same corner?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think in discussions with myself and Nomsa, which are always very robust, we've always said as MultiChoice that we need a strong SABC. We've never shied away from that. And I'm stealing some of the notes from Nomsa where she says she's like, SABC is not trying to be the biggest sports broadcaster in Africa. Whereas that's exactly where we are as a business. And I think to answer your question directly, it's hard to answer it directly because it's almost all of the above. We're very clear in terms of what our mandate is. We're very clear in terms of what we're good at. We're very clear that there are areas where we need to improve in terms of how we tell our story, how we take the public and the media on the journey of explaining in terms of the different initiatives that we are basically investing in, without trying to make that seem as if we are trying to be arrogant in terms of showboating some of the initiatives that we're doing. And I think the cornerstone of everything that we do is without sport, there's no super sport. And I think everything needs to center back to that. In terms of how we make our decisions, in terms of who you partner with, how you make your decisions in terms of the different content that you're going after. Without sport, there's no super sport. So if we use that as our North Star and then work backwards, it becomes quite easier in terms of the different things that we need to navigate. Again, nothing will always be perfect. And again, hindsight is perfect science. But I think the biggest thing is we just need to be very clear and deliberate to make sure that we land our mandate as a business.
Time for just one more from Pranisa.
This particular deal, does it also open up avenues for SuperSport and SABC to partner for other rugby products that SuperSport offers in terms of, let's say, Curry Cup and the UFC and other tournaments, even schools rugby?
Yeah, again, good question. And I think, Nomsa, I think you should also comment. So we've never said no to partnership. We've never said no to partnership. I've been in multiple different forums where I've said partnership and collaboration is very important for us to be successful. It's always been very important. It's something that we need to double down on. Curry Cup, we have reached an agreement to sub-license the Curry Cup semi-final and the final. It just shows the fact that maybe we are not taking people on the journey in a very deliberate way where I don't know how, sometimes it might get lost in the noise, but there's a lot of stuff that we're partnering on. We're looking at a school sports partnership. So again, I think we want to partner. We've never said no to partnership. It's just that at the end of the day, you're running a business. There are commercial terms that you need to agree on, and hence why the discussions with NOMSA are always very robust. But do we want to partner? Yes. Can I project the future? No. But the mandate and at the essence of who we are is we're very clear that without partnership and collaboration, it's going to be very difficult for us to grow sport in South Africa.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Nomsa, Minister, Mark, Rendani. Just one more. Yeah. Sorry, Mark. I'm sorry, we have to close now. We're going off air now. But we'll have time afterwards for some one-on-ones. So thank you very much, everybody. Switch on tomorrow. The match is being broadcast on multiple broadcasters, and I hope you enjoy the game. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's breaking news at this hour. The SABC will be broadcasting that Boks and All Blacks match. And I suppose, Simon, you were talking about this earlier on to say it's quite significant for South Africans.
It's a good step forward. And I was listening to see if there were more collaborations, and they were hinting at them. And then our CEO didn't get to answer the question that the SuperSport CEO had set up. So we have to now take the story forward, and we have to see what comes of this. What I did hear, though, is that the Curry Cup semi-finals and the final are going to be a collaboration. So there's something to look forward to. It sounds like the Minister of Sport is super enthusiastic, but he's also learning as he goes.
Yeah.
So he introduces an issue that's got everybody talking, and then he starts to figure out the finer points. Now he's coming clean that this is actually what happens. There's a lot of money that changes hands. There's a lot of negotiations. They're very guarded about their rights. And but it sounds like SABC and SuperSport do talk. They do talk a lot. So this is a big one. This is a very big one.
It seems he's always also hinting at the fact that there's a possibility of more sporting codes coming into the fold where there'll be greater partnership even there, be it soccer. So clearly a lot to look forward to.
I mean, that's an incredible point, because the Under-20 Athletics Championships in Peru is currently happening, and South Africa has earned 2 gold medals. And the minister was talking about the fact that these athletes hadn't even have their air tickets until 20 minutes before departure. And Athletics South Africa had to come to anybody who would help. And if it can come onto the public broadcasters' platforms, surely all those eyes mean that the sponsorship goes up, that Athletics South Africa is able to court more money for the athletes. This, we're now putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with a lot of interesting answers, and hopefully the right ears and eyes are listening, watching.
And I suppose we speak about, these broadcasting houses that are now going to do this, but there's another man for this moment, the SA Rugby Union president. A lot of praises going towards him, especially when you think about where rugby comes from and where it is right now.
Well, I mean, they've got the dynamite story, and SuperSport has by and large been telling that story only to their audience. And when the SABC gets involved in a World Cup, those figures of 400,000 go straight up to a couple of million. And that's what's at stake. You've got a lot of more interest in it. And if you're telling the stories of the disadvantaged players and where they came from and how they got there, but you're only telling it to an elite audience, then what's the point in that? Because that's not going to inspire much. I mean, you need to tell it to the right audience.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it seems that the SABC, as well as the minister, also they're being acknowledged quite significantly for their role in making sure that we're going to see this once-off partnership marking 30 years of our democracy.
And that's what encourages me, is that they're making sure it's clear it is a once-off, but it's also that there's a clear lines of communication. So let's have those
to
lines
almost
of
manage the
communication,
expectations beyond this point.
Pick up, because the more revenue that comes in, the more advertising, the better the partnership for everybody, and that once-off can become a perennial, an annual,
We're actually hoping that a lot of South Africans, get to at least witness more of these games. And as the minister says, credit to our group CEO. She is, of course, doing everything possible to ensure that you get to see all of these games. But Simon will have more for you on this particular developing story.
Indeed, and ensuring that the SABC continues to fulfill its mandate.